I'm in the office of the mayor of Kennesaw, Derek Easterling, and he is not a professional government guy. He has worked, I guess, in kind of a government job as a teacher, which is part of it. So give us a little bit about your own background first, what you've done up until you became mayor.
Well, I'm actually from Florida. I was born and raised in Fort Lauderdale. I retired from the Navy in 1996, 1997, and I served as a deputy sheriff here in Cobb County, in this part of Georgia, Metro Atlanta community, as you mentioned. And I've been a substitute teacher and looking forward to being a full-time teacher.
Okay. And you did mention to us when we were talking before that you did do some schooling down in Pensacola, so you know our geography down there.
I do. I like your weather. I like the blue water. If there's a way I could requisition some of that here, I think Kennesaw would be the perfect place.
At one of the meetings I covered several years ago in Destin, the geologist explained why that water is so emerald and why the sand is so white. Typically, most of Florida's shoreline, the water gets about a foot deeper every mile you go out.
Right.
In Destin and right along Okaloosa out and over toward Navarre and that area and down toward Panama City, you go out a mile and you're out there in 70, 80 foot of water and you can start catching snapper a mile from the beach. And because of that, the seashells in the other places roll and roll and roll and break up into little brown pieces that dirty up the sand. They don't have that, and that's why there's people who will fight you to anything if you dare try to put any other sand besides that pure white sand on that beach down there. And of course it makes that water such gorgeous to look at as well. No, I don't think we can get Chattahoochee River to look like that.
No, we have the good old Georgia red clay around here, so permanent stains on everything.
Right. So how long have you been part of the Kennesaw community?
I've lived in Kennesaw for almost 14 years now, and I've been mayor for a year and a half.
Wow.
So
you've never held a political office before that?
No, sir. Not that the Navy can't be political, but
okay,
it's my first political office. You don't count out PTA. I figured if I could handle some PTA parents, that I ought to be able to handle a city. But I think the PTA is tougher.
It is. Okay. What made you want to be the mayor of Kennesaw?
My favorite word: opportunity. I saw an opportunity to continue the efforts of prior mayor and council, and I believe that I had it. I had enough experience to pull it together and lead.
Well, and you've kind of inherited some awfully good plans and development that is already underway, and that's what caught my attention. As I said on the talking with the gentleman in the planning and zoning area, last time I was in Kennesaw before last month was August 18th, 1956, and you weren't even here to talk to.
No, sir. It's kind of funny. There used to be a sign that said "Welcome to Kennesaw," and on the other side it said "Hurry back."
Yeah.
But we're no longer what we call a podunk town. We're a larger city. We have a lot of amenities. We're a destination place now.
Yeah.
We truly are. Just over 36,000 residents, still growing. We're looking for that density to make us a bigger dot on the map.
All right. My day here was on my 18th birthday, and I was moving from my mother and stepfather's home in Illinois to my grandparents, my daddy's parents down in South Georgia, and so came through Kennesaw. Didn't have a speed trap then. Now they did up at the Chattanooga area, but not down here.
Right.
So then, since the plans for this apartment project was already underway.
Right, Revival on Main.
Revival on Main, and that's what caught my eye when I rode up here after a Braves game last month. I just was doing a trip down the History Road,
Right.
and wow.
Right. Well, it brings much needed density to downtown Kennesaw, and as you know, local businesses need that density to thrive. And what we're looking for, not just the mom and pops, but we're looking for other businesses that bring something unique to the area, something that typically folks used to have to go to Atlanta to try to find. We wanted it right here. Why go all the way to Atlanta when you can come to Kennesaw?
Right, and of course now with the stadium just down the road, it's a nice place to live, and you're closer to just a trip down, and they're building some more lanes I see on the highway.
Right, and if you want something else to do other than the game, why not venture out? Like you said, early on, you visited the museum, the Southern Museum of Civil War and Locomotive History. We also have a gardens. We have the Smith Gilbert Gardens, which is 17 acres. And I'll bet you when you visit tomorrow, or this afternoon or tomorrow, I'll bet you'll forget all about being in the city. You won't be able to tell. It's an absolutely beautiful facility, well maintained, right here in the city. We have amenities that people want. And they don't have to leave to get away.
How are the business people in your core downtown area responding to the additional people now living that much closer to downtown?
They're seeing a difference. They're starting to see that the density is bringing a different type of customer and more customers. We also have some pretty unique shops downtown too.
And more on the way.
Definitely more on the way. I don't know if you've been to Kennesaw Marketplace. Kennesaw Marketplace was previously as a temporary housing type mobile home park on the corner of Barrett and Cobb Parkway on 41. And now it's over 300,000 square feet of commercial retail with 40 stores, including Whole Foods, which will open in August. Most of the stores are already open, but we have Academy Sports, Guitar Center, numerous restaurants. Plus, they're building 180 luxury senior apartments on the property as well. Talk about density. And those folks don't have to go anywhere. They can walk everywhere to get something to eat, to be entertained. It's all right there.
Right. And as Daryl had mentioned in our interview with him, that what they're after is a goal for the downtown area. You park once and walk all the way around to do
Absolutely. And, we have 4th of July coming up next week, and we celebrate the 4th on the 3rd over at the depot across from the museum. We're going to have thousands of people here to enjoy a Boston tribute band. We always have a throwback tribute band. And then we have a wonderful, it's second to none in our local area, fireworks show. But eventually, Depot Park will be a true green space, hopefully with an amphitheater and other activities, and have a small commercial aspect to it as well. And that's in the planning stages. So people are seeing the change, and they're embracing it. They truly are.
And in some cases, if you've got this kind of housing, jobs for those people will come also to your community.
Oh, absolutely. And even though it's not within the city limits, we have an international airport at the edge of our city limits. And, an international airport, 24/7, customs available. That's what business wants. We have the runway linked to support the new D3 aircraft. We're bringing them here.
Yeah, some people called that in the old days McCullum, I think, was the airport name,
but it's McCullum International.
McCullum International, and it's right here as part of this community. I know our airport, again, it's out not in the city limits. Not very often you want an airport inside your city limits because of everything else, but ours is around 8,000 foot, so it can handle some pretty big aircraft as well. And there's jobs out there around that airport.
We have quite a few, and I'll say that we have, we're an entertainment area as well. We have a great movie industry. A lot of movies are being made in Georgia now. So a lot of the stars, a lot of the entertainers, especially the musical entertainers, some of them possibly have their aircraft here.
Glacier Museum has got some of the stuff that used to be in Marietta at one time in that old factory.
We got the better part of it. So yes, sir, we do. But the general's there, and people really need to know the story about the general and what it took to get the general here. We have an archive facility over there, which it's 8,500 square feet. It's one of the largest archive facilities around for railroad documents.
Right. And there's some interesting and neat places to eat right there, looking over the railroad as the trains go by.
Absolutely, we got a lot of restaurants going down Cherokee Street, right there on the tracks at Trackside BurgerFi, and other restaurants coming soon.
So it looks like good things ahead. So that's the kind of a good time to be a mayor of a town rather than what it was like maybe back in 10 years ago when we had all the real estate problems.
I think any time's a good time to be the mayor, especially when the people of Kennesaw get it. The people want to be a true community, and they're making the effort to move forward. You know, we have people that question what we're doing, but they question it in such a way that they're supportive as well. And that's what I love about our community. We have a vision, we know where we want to go, and now we're setting things in place to get there, and we're getting there the right way.
Mayor, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Cal.
Z-Files is traveling, and you might say, well, why would I go to Kennesaw, Georgia, to do a Z-Files report for North Okaloosa County, and in particular for our folks who live in Crestview. Those who know me, of course, know that I'm trying to push, like many others are, for bringing more people to historic downtown Crestview. And there's a city right here in this part of Georgia that predates Crestview even by far, in Kennesaw, Georgia. Last month I was up to some of the Braves games opening week, and I decided for just take a history trip up Old Highway 41 because the last time I was on this part of Highway 41 was August 18th, 1956, my 18th birthday, and I was moving from my home in the Chicago suburbs to my grandparents' farm down near between Cordele and Albany. And this was the only way to go south then, at least in this part of Georgia. And my gosh, what they have done here. And if you know of the movies and the history of the battle with the general and all of that history story, this is part of that story. And that I just looked at that general engine this morning. I'm with Bob Fox, who's the Economic Development Director for the city of Kennesaw. And Bob, how long have you been doing this kind of work?
Well, I've been with the city for 12 years.
Okay.
And prior to that, I'd had a career in the utility industry for 20 years. So really economic development specifically for the city, 12 years.
Okay. Well, back here on this wall is a map, I guess, of basically Kennesaw.
Well,
and
this is the downtown.
the downtown part,
Yes.
yeah. And I've noticed, you know, a lot of places have an address of Kennesaw, but I don't think they're in your city limits. A lot of stuff out by the interstate, but the mailman delivers mail to them.
That's true, and we're no different than a lot of cities in terms of the postal addressing, where there are properties within the city of Ackworth that has a Kennesaw mailing address. There's properties with an Ackworth mailing address that are in the city of Kennesaw. So it is a little confusing, and plus our city limits are not a real contiguous square block, so to speak. It's a more linear city north to south with uneven city limits to it. So there, you know, people tend to think of the greater Kennesaw area, whether it's the housing market, whether it's retail market with Kennesaw State University. Some of that's within the city limits, some of it's not, but we work very closely with all the entities, whether it's Cobb County, whether it's Kennesaw State University, to really focus on the economy and quality of life for this whole quadrant, this northeast quadrant of the county.
Right. Now, of course, you've got a park over here that's called Depot Park,
Correct.
and I read where a few years ago with your historic preservation people did a lot of work. They've got the depot looking like it may have looked long ago. Then you've also got something that is unique. You've got a tunnel that goes underneath this railroad track that opens into that park, and that's something one of our planners wanted to do underneath. In our case, where the overpass on the highway goes over the tracks. Our case, the tracks run across town, and yours they run parallel the tracks. So I'm going to take this video and say, hey, it has been done. Let's see what we can do to do that.
It's done, but it's a long process, and really the park, the underpass are all part of a long-term plan, and the basis, I think, for a lot of success any community is going to have is having good, solid plans to work from. Your leadership, even if it transitions from election cycle to election cycle, still being committed and consistent to the plan and working the plan. And what we've developed going back several years was both a master plan for the entire downtown area more broadly, and that's really been done through what we have, and you have them similar in Florida regional planning commissions.
You do.
Ours
we
is
have what's called a CRA, Community Redevelopment
Right.
Area, which is
and ours is the Atlanta Regional Commission,
Right.
and they provide technical support and financial support to develop that plan through their Livable Cities initiative. Then we also piggybacked on that and developed a more detailed plan for the core of the downtown and for the park itself, called our Depot Park Master Plan, that really defines new road improvements to be done and how the park will be developed over a several-year period. And we're starting that process now. You have the portion of this park is really just parking and lawn area with the historic depot, but ultimately the park will have a large amphitheater, a large plaza for gathering, additional parking, and then passive fields for play, and then smaller amenities, you know, whether it's small dog park, playground for children, that sort of thing. But the intent was to, seeing as how CSX's dual tracks bisect our downtown, is to provide that pedestrian connectivity, and that's what that underpass provides, really, from our main street, which is where our core of our commercial will be developed, under the tracks, to the existing park. But the park's being expanded. We're acquiring additional properties which will allow us to expand and really develop it per the master plan. And we're at the stage now where we've got the plans in place, we've got the underpass in place, we've been acquiring, we'll complete the acquisition of all the properties we need this year, and then we'll start this year also on the engineering and permitting to start the development of the entire park. So we're excited about it, and it's going to be a great amenity.
Where the new townhouses are going?
It is, and the townhouses are in development now. Some of them will front to the park, some of them will front to Sardis Street. And an interesting concept we're developing, the trail system from the park will actually run through the townhome development and tie into a new park, which we're calling Gateway Park, which will be developed right at the intersection of Sardis Street and South Main. And that's our key gateway from the south coming in.
And that's where the people do cross over.
Absolutely. So that's really
Yeah.
your gateway, and that sense of entry into downtown will create. And this will act as a small pocket park, trailhead, and entry into downtown. That will be developed this fall, ahead of the development of the larger park. But if you're interested in underpass, that's a very arduous process to go through, because it involved Georgia DOT, it involved CSX. It was a very complicated project to engineer and to construct because of the amount of traffic on these dual lines, and making sure that those lines were kept stable through the whole period of construction and penetrating under them.
Right.
We were fortunate. This tells you how far back that project was started. That was back in the days when Congress was still earmarking funds before they stopped that practice.
Okay.
And we were fortunate that Senator Isaacson was very supportive of the project and was able to provide some federal funding for the development of that. And then and you've walked through it, you said?
Yeah, I did. I walked through and saw the history stuff.
So you can see the
yes.
panels that
Yes.
we've put up that really are historic paintings, kind of depicting the sequence and reenactment of the great train chase. So it's nice art for art's sake, but it also gives you a historical reference to the town, into the rail line and its history and importance to us, and also
Well, now we're joined by Daryl Simmons, who is the Planning and Zoning Administrator. Teresa Gaillard, pay attention now. This guy's doing some of the stuff that she's doing down there at our city in Crestview. We're dealing with some of the same kind of growth. So the real story we're going to get to is when I came up 41 last month and came over the bridge over the railroad, and I saw this big building downtown. I said, wow. So that started my digging into it, and I discovered that project. I've toured that facility now and got some beautiful video of what anybody wants to live there. It's top of the notch living place. But also what else? And I saw the restaurants with their rooftop dining looking out over the railroad. So first of all, what did it take to make that happen? I understand it did not happen in a year. It took, who was involved in, with you two, and what all did you have to go through to put that
I
together?
think Daryl, it's good that he's come in because really the foundation is going into the zoning and the planning that allowed that to occur.
Correct. I mean, this goes back to 2001, 2002. When I got here, there were 7 different zoning districts downtown. It was kind of a goulash of zoning districts with no consistency and no plan. So the trench work had to be done, the foundation had to be set, where we had to centralize downtown, have one overlay planning and zoning district that will allow for redevelopment and at the same time some flexibility that will be led by good design and smart planning. So after doing a lot of research and putting basically rebuilding the zoning ordinance, we established the central business district, which brings downtown into one unified plan. And that will give the city of Kennesaw the maximum opportunity for redevelopment, for good design, and for developers who want to invest in our downtown, give them the design flexibility to put something that we all would be proud of.
And of course, in there you had to make your zoning allow people to live above where there could be commercial downstairs. And that's what we're hoping to be doing in the near future in Crestview. So is your entire downtown district eligible to have that kind of zoning in it now?
Yes, it's very flexible. It's a mixed-use district, which means that you can have a good mix of residential living and commercial on the same property or on the same project scope, or it could be all commercial, all residential. It's really a design-driven district, so it gives you all that flexibility.
Well, I know from talking to the leasing folks at the Revolution on Main, that they're about 95% occupied, but what's not occupied heavily part is that commercial level yet. Do you know what's happening with that? Does it just take a while to get those filled in?
Well, it is taking a while, and part of it was that the original developers, once they developed it and stabilized the residential portion, they sold it, and the new owners have it in their portfolio, and they're long-term owners. And really, the original developers weren't going to focus on getting the tenant and the tenant build out so much, knowing they planned to sell the property and allowed it. So the new owners came in this year and they've focused on it, and we think we'll have we know we'll have an announcement in July on the first tenant, which will be a gastropub going in on the north end, and they're close on securing a lease agreement on the south end cap for another restaurant. But honestly, they've been good from the standpoint, and everyone's anxious for the storefronts to get filled out and be active, but they've been very selective, trying to be selective with the right tenants to go in there that they know are experienced operators, financially stable, will perform well long term, and they'll be different. They won't be your run-of-the-mill, because they've had those opportunities. They've turned that interest away. Right. So these will be, both of these that they're working on right now are what I'd call local homegrown family-owned businesses. Right. Yeah, so we're excited about that.
Well, that's great, because you've got people living there, and it's neat. I mean, they could walk miles and miles and never leave the building, because they can walk the figure 8 on each floor and go up and up and down stairs and do all their exercise inside where it's air conditioning too. That might be a benefit, not counting the exercise room and all the facilities that they have got down there. Now the terraces are going to be, I guess, fee simple townhomes. People are going to own those.
Correct.
And they're going to face onto that park.
Yeah, a portion of them will.
Right.
Yeah. And again, that's a developer that we've developed a relationship on some other projects Daryl and I have worked on, and they perform well. They build a good product. They saw our vision for downtown, and they kind of bought into it and really cooperated with the city as we were needing to acquire property to expand our park for the master plan. They coordinated with us on the portion they needed to buy and what we needed to buy, and So it was a very good relationship in terms of the acquisition. And then they worked through the CBD process, worked closely with Daryl in terms of the actual design and layout of it. But it allowed us to really wrap the southern end of what will be the park with residential, and then still have this gateway park we were talking about right at the corner.
Well, how does your existing downtown businesses that have been there a while, how are they reacting to this new population that's there now and wanting to walk around and go see what's on the street?
They spoke loud and clear even before the construction began. The city participated in what's called Livable Centers Initiative planning study for downtown. And through that workshops and the interaction with our businesses and residents, they spoke out very clearly that they needed more density, more people living in downtown to help nourish and maintain the existing business, as well as spearhead new business coming in. So it's been a common vision and goal for both the citizens and the business owners and staff and the elected officials that to revitalize downtown, we've got to have a larger population living and working and playing downtown.
And as you are watching this video on the Z-Files YouTube channel or on my Cal Zethmar Facebook page, some of the video overlay you're going to see is the big apartment complex that we visited. You'll see some of the inside shots, the saltwater swimming pool that it has, and the big open air sky above the pool area. And then we'll also see some shots of that parking garage where there are 660, parking spaces to take care of those folks. Now, parking does become the challenge as you add more living and more commercial stuff. We've got that same challenge, There's always people that want it. In our town, you can park and really, some people will sit there all day, and some will move, even though there's a theoretical 2-hour time limit. I don't think that gets pushed hard. So if you've got in your master plan places, you're going to be looking at more parking as well?
And actually, that's a major focus. And I don't think any town ever gets out in front and stays out in front of their parking needs, but we're trying to be as proactive as we can be. And actually, Revival's a very good example of that, because Revival, based on what the development's parking requirements were, based on the residential units and the square footage of retail, what we did with them is enter into a public-private partnership where the city then helped fund the parking, and they built in excess of what the requirements were, over 300 more spaces, which are public. So all the surface parking wrapping around it, all the on-street parking, that's all public, plus the lower level of the deck, and then a certain amount of the upper levels of the deck are for either the general public or for city employees. So we've added over 300 public spaces there. Then as I mentioned, the Depot Park will add an additional 300 spaces over and above what's already existing at the park and at the museum. But we also, and this was really new this year, like y'all, we did not regulate our public parking. So someone could park there 24/7, and we had no way of enforcement for turnover of the parking spaces. We've started picking out specific zones on Main Street at Revival, and we're time limiting those now to get turnover, so the spaces are there for the businesses. And we're going to see how that goes this year, and then next year we'll look at it and tweak it, and we may add some other zones, we may adjust otherwise. And then we're continually looking for other opportunities. We're doing something that y'all may, if parking's a challenge, something that we're working actively on is where there are private properties, businesses with excess parking. We're working with them on shared parking agreements, so a portion of their parking then becomes available for the public. And each agreement's unique based on what maybe that individual property owner's needs help with. But we've done that with a dentist's office their parking lot's being rebuilt as part of this road project, and we're working with 3 or 4 other property owners on shared parking. So we're looking at how you manage the parking, how you add more parking, and how you do shared parking.
And I gather you've got some pretty good enthusiasm on your city council, because I saw that townhouse project got a 5-0 vote.
Yeah, I mean, wouldn't you
Yes.
say so, Daryl?
Yes, they bought into the vision. They understand that you know, we all have to just stay with the plan that we have, and that they bought into it. The other thing that they also kind of understood was, with downtown, if you look at our plans, we're incorporating not just more gateway access, but a lot of trails and sidewalks, because we want to be truly a downtown walkable center, and which means the goal is to park once and shop and eat and dine and enjoy Kennesaw, but just to park once versus pull up to the shop, get out, get back in the car, drive around the block, go to another shop, park, go to another shop. We want you to park once, enjoy downtown, stay all day, and not have to depend on cars going around the downtown area.
I do notice going around, you mentioned you're building a roundabout out here, because your city hall is
we are.
really just kind of not too far away. And in our case in Crestview, our new courthouse and then a former bank building, which they now have some administrative offices in, and there was an old Piggly Wiggly sort of been closed for years, so the county and with some of the city CRA money, that lot has been cleared, the building is down, and I think they're looking at on these little minimal, kind of a little island stage area, park area,
Yeah.
grassy area, that so the people can go back and forth between the 2 county buildings and have places to park without taking up on-street parking spaces.
Yeah, and I think an important point to make, you can have plans that are thoughtful with a lot of community input, but to really implement those, you need funding. And whether that's private capital investment or whether it's the public infrastructure improvements. And one of the things that Cobb County has, and I don't know if y'all have it, but they do have a SPLOST program, a special purpose local option sales tax program, that, and they run from 4 to 6 years, and they've been renewed continually, several cycles now. And specific projects will be identified to be funded through that SPLOST funding for that time frame. And each municipality in the county, as well as the county, comes up with their list, and that's what the voters vote on. That's really how we're funding the road improvements, how we're funding the park development. And without those SPLOST funds, we simply wouldn't have the resources to implement a lot of this.
Yeah. In addition to that, the funding is very important, but the only way we can get a lot of these projects completed is with cooperation with other state agencies and local authorities, because we've been spending the last, I say, 7-8 years really garnishing good relationships with Cobb County, with the state health and Cobb Water and Sewer, the electric companies, the utilities, because we need their cooperation, especially when you have a transportation project and you run across a unique problem that's going to require a lot of brain cells to figure out the solution. So I think, in addition to garnishing and securing funding, really shoring up and securing good relationships with your local authorities and your including your downtown development authority, your utility companies, the water and sewer, because you can't get it done without their participation. So the better the stronger the relationship, I think the more we can get done.
Well, it looks like you've got a good plan, and of course the good thing, long term, you are certainly improving the property tax base of your downtown area with the value of all the new development, brand new stuff.
Well, what's been developed and what's in the development cycle, whether it's this project, this multifamily mixed-use project we call Dallas and Maine that will start this summer, or this project called Pritchard Park, which again is residential, and then a mix in. We've got between 200 and 230 million dollars of private investment being added to the digest, and we'll add about 600 residential units. And the thing that the planning Daryl was speaking to really focused on and spoke to is we wanted a mix of residential within the downtown core. That's both for sale, owner occupied, as well as rental, a wide range of price points, housing that also is tailored for seniors. So we really tried to recruit a mix of different residential, but we know over 600 units coming in on what's been approved and in the development stage, and potential for about another, that plans we're working on between 200 and 300 additional units.
And all, that what comes more commercial places, some more good places to eat and entertainment.
That's the rooftops drive all of that.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, guys, I appreciate you taking your time out of your days. City government always keeps you folks busy. But for our friends back in Okaloosa County, whatever city you're in, if you come to Atlanta to go to a Braves game, you will probably find, as I have, you can get a little bit better hotel prices if you go up 75 a little bit into what is called Kennesaw, down around Chastain Road and with the big town center shopping center and all that is. They even got some good hot dog places over there too to go to. But anyway, then if you do have some daytime time, just ride over and go up what's called Cobb Parkway a little ways, and when you see where a sign says Old 41, turn off and take a ride up that, and you'll see what this is, and you'll say, hey, if it can be done there, it can be done here. Fellows, thanks for your time and some of your comments.
Well, thank you, Callan. If we could put in one final pitch if they're visiting, be sure and visit our museum.
Oh, yeah.
It's a great railroad and Civil War museum, and we also have a wonderful public gardens to visit called Swift Cantrell.
Okay, fantastic. Daryl, thank you.
Thank you for having us, and again, come and check out Kennesaw. We have a wonderful website, tons of events all through the year. To keep up with our events and what we're doing in Kennesaw, please check us out at www.kennesaw-ga.gov.
Appreciate it. And this Z-Files on the road for WAAZ WJSB.